Solace Convoy, and today I'm taking a look at Newage H69R Coal, which is their version of a G1 spinout. This is on loan to me from a server member, Clown. Thank you again for letting me take a look at this figure. Oopsies. Here's a look at the box. Classical Diaclone style box. I think. Picture the figure. Name of the brand of the car, Kuntak. Obviously no references to Lamborghini explicitly, since, copyright. But yeah, tiny box. Let's just get into this figure. I want to start off by saying that he is pretty small, so apologies if some details don't come through. It's a bit hard to film at this scale. I want to get in on that head sculpt, but it might be a bit of a challenge. It is a pretty good head sculpt. I do like the shaping, and the eyes are painted pretty well. There's a silver paint and there's gold paint on the sides, and he has golden eyes that sometimes struggle to show up, but they are there and they are visible in person despite the small size. They do look pretty good. He's a little bit of New Age mouth going on, but not significantly. I do like how small the nose is. As you can see my thumb there for scale. They did manage to get the nose done correctly, so that's pretty awesome. I think I'll just do the entire robot mode overview zoomed in, honestly. Like, it's really hard. 360, backpack is actually really clean for what it is. I don't think it's necessarily an improvement over the MP, because the visual profile is different. Instead of the MP's lump, which is like here, this is like up here and like that. So it's a bit of a it doesn't help that this guy's got a bit of a longer torso right here, so the backpack like accentuates it, which kind of makes it a bit worse, honestly. That's not great. He does have black paint here. This is black plastic. I mean, there's lots of good red paint on this guy. Some details picked out here, details picked out here for alternate mode. He also has this midriff section, which has like some blue paint, which is done pretty well right there. So that looks pretty good. And then the chrome with the tampographs on top carried over from alternate mode. I don't know how well that'll hold up over time. And it is a thing you have to manipulate for transformation a lot, so just something to keep in mind. Overall, it is pretty clean. I think that is one of the big things about this. It's very clean, especially compared to earlier New Age car bots. Articulation wise, you have a head on a ball joint that can get you all the way up. It gets you a tiny bit down, some side to side, and of course you can rotate it. Unfortunately, these wheels in his shoulders right here, they get in the way a lot. Not in the way you think, but sometimes when you try to get particular angles or specific looks, like for example, if you want him to, look this way to the side, then you can only look that way in a very specific angle. And it just impedes at some points. The shoulders are on universal swivels, so you go all the way around. They can also go out. And then these are also hinged independently, so you can go more out, which is great. You have a dedicated bicep swivel. You have a very nice double jointed elbow, though it's a little bit tight. And sometimes this wrist will come undone. It can tilt up, not tilt down for transformation. And then the wrist can swivel. You have a waist swivel that works perfectly fine. You have an ab crunch. Unfortunately, it looks pretty ugly, like usual, and does not really help this figure's already long torso, which is one of my major aesthetic complaints. You also have ball-jointed hips. There are hip skirts right here that are on hinges that are a bit tight, and they ball joint forward, all the way back. Not all the way back. They're impeded by these things back here. There's like these parts from his alternate mode here, but they can get that far back. They can go out on ball joints, the usual. His thigh swivels are a bit strange. They're like, there's something wrong with them. I think they have like this resistance, it feels like, when you want to turn them, and because of how like thin his thighs are, it just feels like it feels weird. It feels like a little bit uncomfortable. I don't know if it's just because they're not tight, but there's a bit of resistance. You feel like you're pushing something past something when they use the thigh swivel. Knees, I don't really like the knees on this thing. They're too high up, and they also only get you 90 degrees, so they don't really do much in the grand scheme of things, honestly. Unfortunate. Ankles are where things kind of are rough. It's just a toe tilt. So, you know, it doesn't really do anything this way either, because then this is sitting here, so you can't really get any of those running poses, which is unfortunate. And that's pretty much it for articulation. It's not bad, and it's really good for the size. This guy is diminutive, but the actual articulation count, I feel like, is higher than what I would numerically assign his posability to be, if that makes a lot of sense, or if it doesn't make a lot of sense. In terms of accessories, we have basically nothing. You get a singular blaster, which is painted silver, and then you get a chromed missile, which replaces his hand. He can hold the blaster in his hand, though it is a very tight fit. When you go to pull out the blaster, you will indubitably separate his hand from his body, because the hands can come off. He has no alternate hands, by the way. And then you can, oh my god, it is a tight fit, and you can tab in this chrome missile, which is awesome. So there's that, but that's it for accessories. You know, there's nothing else. Which, you know, make of that what you will, right? This is, after all, a $54 Carbot, who is, you know, speaking of size, we can start the size comparisons off right now. I will have to zoom out. Speaking of size, and you can see how tiny he is when I zoom out. He is, oops, it's upside down, 7 centimeters tall, 7.5. In inches, that would be about a little bit over 3 inches. $54, by the way. Some quick size comparisons. Actually, before I do size comparisons, I want to bring in my other spin out toy. This is the Takara Masterpiece, who kind of towers over this guy, as he shows a Masterpiece versus Legends toy. But I think the reason I brought this comparison in is, first of all, not to make a point about price or value or anything. Spin out is really expensive now, since he's been sold out for a long time. I wanted to talk about proportions. If you guys notice, Spin Out has a really strong lower body. His legs make up a lot of his mass, and they are like a focal point. While Sunstreaker has a lot of his transformation inside, while Spin Out here has a lot of his transformation inside his calves, they don't really flare out in the same way, nor take up the same visual profile. If you'll notice, we also have a lower offset knee joint here, so that the thighs are actually significantly longer than they look from a forward profile. So when you pose it, it feels more dynamic and fluid. But I think the more crucial part of it all is that, relative to his size, Spin Out, the MP, the torso is significantly shorter. It doesn't feel as elongated as it does on the Legends figure. Whereas, if I wanted to get into the numbers and the ratios and the proportions or whatever, right? You could say that Spin Out's torso here is almost 4 centimeters, right? So it's over half of his length, it's half of his height. Whereas on the MP, the torso is 7 centimeters, and the toy is over 15 centimeters tall, right? So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, that, obviously Legends have constraints, and they have things that hold them back. But I do think that was something that maybe they either intentionally proportioned it like this, because I think the display model also, the Sunbow model has a long torso for the base Sunstreaker mold, or just because it wasn't a priority, which is fine, but I just wanted to talk about it. And there it is with Spin Out, obviously. I'm going to put it next to some other toys, not just for size purposes. I wanted to put it next to Newage Barricade. This is one of the earliest Newage molds and one of their first ever Carbots, and you can kind of see the rapid change. This is looking at, I don't even want to say the original MP Datsun versus MP 39. There's a gulf of difference between these. But I also feel even if this is a lot more accurate, and like a lot cleaner, and it obviously feels a lot more complex, and a lot of the car mode parts aren't as visible. It looks like a significantly more complex and involved toy. It's they're both not proportioned great. This is dumpy and stupid in terms of its proportions, and this is not like, it's proportioned in a way that like, yeah, it looks like the source material, but it doesn't really, in a vacuum, you wouldn't say like, oh, those are good super robot proportions, right? Or good mecha proportions. Not really. Also, Barricade is more posable. I'm not even joking. It is more posable. We haven't really improved much in so many years. I mean, obviously, it's infinitely more accurate and infinitely more complex, but in some ways, I'll just leave it for size comparisons. In some ways, things stay the same. There's a mini bot, just Road Ranger. Another mini bot, which would be the Sea Spray mold. So you can see that spin out is not large, and after all, this is a half of a $55 2-pack, half of a $50 2-pack, a toy that retailed for $25 to $30, and this guy who is $54. Next to their Optimus mold, who is also $59. And all of a sudden that price starts to kick in, right? Next to a Core, who's $9. Next to a Legion class toy, which was probably $5 10 years ago. And next to a Deluxe. And outside of this Optimus right here, right? Outside of this Optimus, this is the most expensive toy in this shot. I don't know. Is this twice the price of this? I mean, is it inflation? Well, but yeah, I'm gonna get it transformed and we'll take a look at alternate mode. Here are some alternate mode size comparisons, just really quickly. You know, some Newage figures, etc. Legion class. So he's about Legion class size in alternate mode, which is really impressive. He shrinks down a bit, but not really. He's next to a Core. Let me move these out of the way. And just for posterity's sake, next to a Deluxe. So he's pretty small. Here he is next to Newage's Barricade, and you can kind of see the difference in design perspective. This is more so trying to be, well, I guess, I don't know. This isn't like a super realistic That's Unfair Lady Z, right? Just like this isn't a super realistic Kuntak, but there is a level of difference. I think this is very much in a certain style that I'll talk about in a second. And this is very much trying to be some amalgam of realism and the original toy and the cartoon model. Anyways, it's not perfect though. The bigger comparison, I think, is MP Spin Out, and this is kind of where the design priorities for this alternate mode really come into play. The shaping is entirely different, and they are not really congruent with each other in terms of their shape, honestly, because this guy, you can see, has this wide flattening design, I suppose. That's, you know, this is an actual Kuntak, and this is you know, I mean, just proportionally, just looking at them, it's pretty obvious. This is a very different shape. This is based entirely mostly on like the original Generation 1 toy, which is obviously, you know, the Lamborghini Robo from Diaclone, which also is what the cartoon model's alternate mode is based on, and it's why it looks like this. Newage didn't decide to make this very toy-accurate alternate mode and forego the realism they've been putting forward in their alternate modes on this guy because they cared about the G1 toy for this release. They did this because the Toon model for Sunstreaker, the alternate mode, looks like this. And, you know, that is fine. That's their prerogative. I understand that cartoon accuracy is, of course, what they've always been doing, but the alternate modes for a lot of their stuff have always tried to veer a little bit towards realism, like that Barricade I showed off to you before, right? I mean, this isn't completely compromised for the sake of looking like the cartoon model or the toy design, but this is not really a Kuntak. The just shaping of the front is entirely different. The proportions of the front are entirely different. Next to the MP, it's just even more obvious that like it doesn't capture the profile of this classic car at all. And that's kind of one of the main appeals of Newage to me personally, is that this, you know, they're pocket-sized model, almost like Hot Wheels-sized cars that are also Transformers, and this isn't really that. but I understand why people would want this in particular. I mean, as it is, the alternate mode doesn't look bad, right? Let's zoom in a bit. The paint is all there. There's the chrome. The tampographs are here, and they are impossible to show on camera. But it does say Countach on the back of the spoiler. Again, my camera is not capturing it at all. But it does say Countach there, and these red hinges are in the middle, so it looks really not great. Yeah, but you can see how it says Countach, and obviously these are going to be fingerprint magnets, and then you have to move them a lot for transformation. So you also have that tempographing on the supercharger. Unlike the Takara MP, which has the opportunity to like remove the supercharger, not removed, it transforms between two alternate modes, a realistic Countach and the supercharger version on top. But this does not do that, which is fine for a Legend scale toy. But I just wanted to show them off proportionally, and like maybe that like makes it clear why this doesn't really feel like approaching the Countach's proportions really mattered for this release. I think it was more so just the cartoon model, really, for the mold itself. Obviously, this is not a cartoon release. This is going to be a tricky final takeaway. I want to start off by saying that there are a lot of positives here. I think if you're into the tune design, or not just the tuning design, because this is not the tune release, but for the general mold, if you don't mind the proportions and you like the toy/tune alternate mode, you like how it looks, the engineering and the transformation to get there is pretty fun. It's not like terrible to pose or whatever. The lower body is pretty limited. I know some people have had issues with it being back heavy, but if you know how to counterbalance, I didn't have those issues. People have also said the legs kind of like fall apart when you try to pose it. They mistransform themselves. I also didn't have that issue, but I have a lot of experience with Legends toys, and I know how to, I apply force in certain ways. But again, those things can happen. I'm not going to say they didn't just because they didn't to me. However, I just think it's way too expensive for what you get. It's not even like there's not enough accessories, or there's not enough this, or there's not enough that. It really should only be like 40 bucks max. With all the fancy paint and all the high parts count and all that, this is just way too expensive for what it is. And that's kind of the crux of my recommendation. If you're on the fence and you like aren't someone who buys every Legends toy or every Newage figure, and you're like, do I want to make this one my like one of my 2 or 3 Newage figures for the year? I would probably say no. You can literally go out and buy like a infinitely better Newage mold for $5 more, like the Trailbreaker mold or Optimus, or there are so many good Newage figures in the $55 to $65 price point. This is not worth that price point. I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's not worth the money. And all my criticisms about like the proportions and the subjectivity of the alternate mode, all those kind of fall to the side for your decision. Like your decision should be based on like what you like. If you don't agree with me on those things, then those aren't flaws for the toy. I'm not going to make a recommendation based on my personal biases that I wanted a realistic Countach or I wanted a shorter torso for the proportions. But I am going to make a recommendation based on what you get for the price, and I think the value is just not there. That's my final takeaway from all this. It's just way too expensive for what it is, and Newage is constantly like pushing the envelope of how much they can charge and how little they can put in the box. I'm not going to say it's a bad release because, the price is so high it makes the toy bad. No, but the price is so high it dampens the joy of handling it, and the fact that I could never, really justifiably buy this toy. Thank you again to Clown for loaning this to me. I really appreciate it. I do still like taking a look at it. I did still enjoy it for the most part. So if you're fine with the price and you are into this toy line, you're committed, I don't think you'll have a bad time. But that's it for me, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope to see y'all soon. Bye.